Hello everyone. Welcome. Thank you for setting up the stage. Let me share my screen. Okay, so for those that know me, I'm Dan. I'm part of the Advanced Installer team. Today we'll discuss how to move from the local installer build to an automated release process with Advanced Installer and GitHub Actions. We'll see how local build can run automatically and package latest binary files into the installer setup, and how that can be automated with the GitHub Actions. While GitHub Actions is the platform we'll use through the demo, the concept and workflows are not specific to the GitHub Actions. Advanced Installer can be automated in virtually any build environment. For self-hosted build systems, where Advanced Installer is installed on the build machine, you have access to full automation capabilities, including both the command line interface and PowerShell COM automation. For cloud-based platforms, Advanced Installer provides a predefined integration for GitHub Actions, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, TeamCity, and any other system that runs on PowerShell and CLI. In today's webinar, the goal is not to learn syntax. Instead, we'll focus on the process and best practices behind the installer automation based on our experience of what we seen so far. We'll start by creating and validating an installer locally. Usually that will be the fastest way to iterate to the troubleshooting packaging issue. Once we have a working installer, we'll move the same process into the build system automated pipeline, which may include versioning, code signing, installer creation, and update configuration file that is being used by the updater to detect if a new version is available or not. So we want to emphasize that the approach for that will not be to start directly with the pipeline configuration. No, you will start with the installer created locally and validated to see that your application is working as expected. After the installation, that the updater is able to detect and inform the user if a new version is available, and the upgrade process works as expected. Once you have everything running locally correctly, then you will switch to the build automation. In the today's webinar, we'll have a demo application, which basically lets the user to browse for a folder, list the files inside of that location, and inspect the environment variables. We'll use Visual Studio. Now, for those that are already familiar with the Advanced Installer, you know that Advanced Installer also comes with the extension for the Visual Studio. We won't use that because the most important thing is that the installer consumes the build artifacts, and which may come from a Visual Studio, a command line build, a CI pipeline, or even multiple projects combined. We'll start by running the application locally to confirm the local build, then create the installer, validate the setup, and this loop that will locally test it, it's basically the faster way to iterate and troubleshoot packaging before we hand it to the pipeline. In the pipeline, we need to end up with the installer that is correctly configured and the application is running as expected. We also have an upgrade process and uninstall process that works correctly. Once we have a working installer locally, we'll move the same process to the pipeline. The manual steps become automated and reproducible, driven by PowerShell or command line. It's up to you how you're using it. In the pipeline, we automate versioning, code signing, installer, update configuration file. It's that ini file used by the updater. These are the same actions that you can do it locally, but now they can be done on every run. By the end, you'll have a practical workflow. Validate locally, automate the proven steps, and keep it portable across any build platform. Okay, that being said, let's start the demo. So this is the Visual Studio project that I mentioned. I have a simple application. Basically, when testing it, I can see my application listing the files from the location that I've selected, environment variables, so this is not important. Okay, when this project is being built, it will create the artifacts. And let me see where those are located. Okay, so these are the artifacts. There are a few. That means my application is self-hosted. All the dependencies are already packaged with the application. That's not a bad thing. So my application, when testing it, I can see it runs. Now, the correct approach for this to test my application and see if my application requires any dependency would be to go to a sandbox environment where I will copy the application and see if my application is running. This way, I will be able to detect if I need any runtimes that I need to package. Let's say I'm not aware of those, and I'm trying from the early stage to present what will be the logical steps that you need to follow when creating an installer for an application. For those that are already familiar with this step, yeah, it might be. So I have the application copied in the Windows sandbox environment. Basically, it's a light environment for testing, which does not have any application runtime installed. And I can see my application is running correctly, which means I don't need any runtimes to add. Okay, that because I know what are the runtimes required by my application. Now I can take a look and start the installer creation. I will start the advanced installer. In the start page for the advanced installer, we will also have predefined templates, so specialized templates, such as the Visual Studio import or the .NET application import. I won't use these specialized templates. Instead, I will go with an empty template. Here I can choose the project-based for my template. Based on the project type, I will have access to specific features. Let's go with the enterprise one, which will be the most common, or the professional. I will create a new project. And here it's the project. We will configure the installer locally. We will test it. We will make sure that application is running as expected. All the one-time changes that needs to be done in the installer should be done now. And in the pipeline, we should only take into consideration and update the dynamic parts of it. Okay, webinar demo. Okay, quickly go through the product details. Now, we want to digitally sign our application. For the moment, we'll use the certificate from the store. In our pipeline, we'll use a PFX file because it requires integration with the file, how we would reference that PFX file in your pipeline. So it's more challenging. While for trusted signing and Azure Key Vault, once you pass the connection details, you can use them anywhere. It can be on your local machine, it can be in a pipeline, it doesn't matter. While the only one, it's through the PFX file. I know PFX files are not something that the vendors still provide. They may come with a USB dongle. Now, for those that have the certificate on a USB dongle, it's very important for you to know that you cannot use that certificate for signing in a build environment that is not self-hosted. So for a build system that are not self-hosted on your machine or your servers, and you don't have access physically to that machine so that you can plug in the USB dongle, in this case, you cannot use those certificates for signing. We've enabled signing. The next step is also configuring the updater. We'll come back later to it, but the most important part is adding the resources to the application. Advanced Installer has support for adding resources to the application through a drag and drop. So here are the resources of my application. So I can just drag and drop in the project file. And I see right here the source for the project, but I won't do that. Instead, I will remove all the resources and going to the folder properties, I will use the synchronized functionality. Basically, that gives me the possibility to run a special command during the pipeline and say, okay, I want the application folder to be synchronized with the folder from this path. Whatever it will be in that folder, Advanced Installer will grab all the files and add them to the installer project. In my case, the binaries are in a predefined location, and I can browse to the specified location. I don't need to worry about the path. although I see right here the paths as being absolute paths, now the project resource policy in Advanced Installer, as long as the project that I will save, it's on the same drive as my project, resources will not be saved in absolute path. Instead, it will be using relative path. So that is very important. That means I can move the project from one location to another, from one computer to another, and still be able to build that project without any issues. Only if using project and referencing files from different drives, then those will be saved with an absolute path. Okay, I will save it in the download folder. It's not that important. This is the initial, actually, let's save it in the repository because we are working in a repository. A webinar demo. Okay, and save it here. Now, once the files are saved, added to the project, now I can start continuing my one-time changes. That may include going to the Teams view and setting a theme for the installer. Okay, let's choose this one. Of course, if I need to add any custom action to the installer project, I can simply go now and add those custom actions. These are one-time changes that I most likely don't have to touch when the when the pipeline is running. Let's say I want to launch the file at the end of the installation. Simply reference the file, and my custom action will be able to be executed successfully in the finish execution. It's not finalized. Okay, I don't want to wait. That's it. Do I need to install any services? No problem. I just go to the services, configure service. Let's start and configure the service. Okay, I don't want to start it because it's not an actual application that can be installed as a service. It's just for demo purposes. Once I've configured and I have placed all the pieces of the puzzle so that my installer can, the application can run correctly after the application is being installed through this installer, then I can test upgrade part, uninstall part, and so on. Let's say that everything runs as expected. The next part will be to integrating the updater with my application. For those that are not that familiar with the updater, basically the updater, it's a tool that comes with the advanced installer, and I can use it to inform the users when a new version is available. Depending the workflow that you've implemented to the updater, you have the possibility to simply inform the user. You have the possibility to automatically update the application silently with the full UI, display those notifications. So there is plenty of options, whatever will be your scenario. Okay, in the update configuration file, there is this URL path where it needs to point to the updates configuration file. Basically, this is the configuration file used by the updater to inform the user that a new version is available or not. Also, this is a one-time, so you would like to provide here the final path where you will host the ini file on your server. I'm not aware of any other changes that let's say the installer may require. So let's say this will be the initial version of the installer. Other dynamic parts that might be included in the installer might be the versioning. And here in Advanced Installer, you have the possibility to synchronize the version with an exe or a DLL file from the project, from the disk, or an assembly version, or even get the version from an ini file or JSON file. If you want to synchronize the version of the MSI installer with the binary file from your project, it's up to you. But you can also set the versioning for the installer in your build pipeline. So it's up to you how you want to be configured. I will leave it as it is because in my pipeline, I will update dynamically the version for the MSI installer to match my scenario. Okay, Another settings that I've seen in the project, and I'm also using it. I want to have the naming to include versioning for my installer. That's possible and does not bring me product version. And I will reference directly the product version. This allows me to easily spot and test the installers and know exactly which one had what problem. This is the installer that I have created. Once everything is done, the next step will be to build the installer and test it. I'm testing it locally to speed up any troubleshooting and fixing it the installer. While the build is happening in the background, let's take a look at our repo, and we can see that our project that I have previously configured, which is similar with this one that we've created right here. If we take a look and check in Notepad, we can see that the resources, okay, we have not, we should be able to see that the resources, yeah, it's right here. So for example, this file that we see right here, the source path for this file is this one, which basically means we are not using hard-coded path. Instead, the path is relative to the working directory, and this is the working directory in our case. So that looks good. That allows me to go and copy these files to any other computer or drive and still be able to run the installer. Now I have the exe installer. I should test it. Similar, going with in a sandbox environment, spin up the VM, copy, run the installer, test the install, test the uninstall, test the upgrade part, and let's say everything is running properly. Once I have the installer configured and running locally successfully, then this is the step where I need to take into consideration moving it to the pipeline. Only after the installer is running as expected and the application is successfully launched, I can go and take into consideration the pipeline creation. Until then, I don't need to take into consideration the pipeline. Everything is configured locally. Actually, what is dynamic in our case? So first of all, the certificate won't be referenced to the store, so we need to figure it out how to configure the signing part in the pipeline. Another part is the files creation, and as mentioned before, we'll use the synchronized folder support that allows us to synchronize the content of the application folder with the artifacts, with the folder where the artifacts are being created in the pipeline. And for that, we'll run a command during the pipeline. And versioning, it's something that will update through the pipeline. So these three that will be the dynamic part in our case. If you have others, let's say setting other properties, you will simply add those in the pipeline as well. Let's see how the repository looks like. So checking the application, I can see it was added in the GitHub. Going to the GitHub Actions, I see that I've run a few attempts, so I have tried 40 times until I've got everything running as expected. And we'll go to the major successful pipeline configuration that basically gives me whatever I wanted. And actually, the fourth run of the pipeline was successful. So let's take a look and see how the pipeline looks like. Initially, the failed one was pretty close. Yeah, I just had to review. But the first, what I've focused was to make the Visual Studio installer build in the pipeline. Yeah, my first attempt was pretty close, but yeah, it was not yet successful, but with the fourth one, I was able to build the Visual Studio installer, the Visual Studio project in the GitHub action and have the artifacts created. So basically what we see right here, it's similar with what we're doing in the rebuild solution. So rebuilding the solution creates the binaries of our application. What we have right here will basically trigger the Visual Studio solution and creating the artifacts. Now, I've mentioned in the beginning that we'll use the PFX file certificate. That means we have a password for that certificate, and we need to add that password to the secrets and variable for our GitHub action. We have other variables. We have the advanced installer key, we have the certificate password, and the signing certificate. And how this certificate is being added, basically, I'm reading the PFX file as a binary data. I'm converting the binary to base64 string and then copying it to the clipboard so that I can add it through the. Let's run this command and see how this looks like. Okay, if going to the repository and trying to add a new secret. Okay. Okay, this is how it looks like, the command. Basically, this is the converted certificate to base64 bit string. Okay, I've added my key, certificate, password, and signing certificate. That means I am able to use that certificate in the pipeline. Okay, going back to this is the first run. I already have them saved here. Okay, this is the fourth one that it's basically creating me the successful artifacts. Now it's time to configure the advanced installer, the installer creation, and start building the installer because I have the artifacts created. And let me zoom in. The relevant part for that, everything that it's up here, it's related to the artifacts creation up here. Now, the next part is decoding the certificate so that I can be able to reference in the advanced installer. And for that, basically, here is the advanced installer part. And what I'm doing, I'm setting up, I'm using the GitHub action to advanced installer. I'm referencing the license key, which was added as a secret. I'm enabling PowerShell. I'm providing the advanced installer path, which basically it's in the root, because this is how I've locally configured the repository. I've added the project in the root, the project and update configuration file. Okay, I'm setting up the output directory. Basically, this corresponds to the builds view. If you go to the builds view, you will see this. This is the output path that it's basically configured to the GitHub action. And now these are the commands that are being executed during the when the pipeline runs. Basically, the most important part is the one related to the synchronization, which basically I'm telling, okay, I want a new synchronized operation between the application directory, which corresponds to the folder that I've used right here. Going to the properties, I can see that the app dir is the property that is being assigned to this folder. And I'm telling, okay, I want the application directory to be synchronized with whatever will be in this bed, and whatever will be in this bed are basically the artifacts created by the Visual Studio build operation. And also I'm passing the existing files delete flag. After that, I'm setting up the signature and I'm telling for signing. Remember, initially when I've created the project locally, I said use a certificate from the store. I could also use a certificate from the disk, because that gives me the possibility to select the PFX directly from the disk. But That's not important. But the most important is that I'm telling to the advanced installer to use the certificate located on this path and providing the path. All these commands that we see right here are documented on our website, and you can see them right here through the PowerShell and command line updates. Okay, here it is. Set seek. We will find the command for signing on our website. This is what I've basically used to set certificate file and path. Basically, this is the command that I'm using in my GitHub actions. Okay, let's go back. So the steps that I have right here ensures that the files that were previously created, the artifacts created by the Visual Studio build operation will be included in the installer, and the installer is referencing the certificate that I've added to the pipeline. Okay, the next actions are uploading the artifacts, and as you can see here, I'm so that I can test it. I'm uploading both the installer but also the application artifacts. Yeah, most likely for testing purposes. Okay, once this workflow went, basically I had what we previously had to the UI, building the installer and being able to test it. Once I've validated that the current state of the pipeline is creating us an installer that can be installed, uninstalled, and the upgrade works as expected, I can go with the next step. And the next step is the one related to the updates configuration file creation. What is the update configuration file? Okay, well, for that we need, let's see how this operation will look like in the UI when using Advanced Installer. I need to go to the update section. Okay, update. And here I need to use the update configuration template. Basically, through this template, I am able to select the installer that was created. I will start configuring the installer. This is the location where the exe file, the installer, resides on your website, on your web server. Okay, the local file path. This is something that needs to be updated to the path that is available in working directory in the GitHub. The install detection, basically, this tells to the updater if the update was successfully installed or not. Okay, release notes for the installer, update target, auto close application. So all the configuration that can be done through the UI can be done automatically through the command line or PowerShell support. So if I will start new features, okay, new version available, yeah, new features, everything that we pass right here can be automated in the pipeline, and we'll see how. And let's try and build this project and see what we get. Okay, webinar demo updates project. If we're building this project, we'll see what. Okay, this is what the file, the update configuration file contains. Basically, all this information that we see right here are being used by the updater, and those needs to be dynamically generated for each installer, because there will be a different value for the size of the installer. The URL will be different because I've also added versioning in the exe naming. The versioning will be different. and everything that we pass right here needs to be updated dynamically in the pipeline. So if opening the next step, which I have right here, I've also added more comments. So what we have in this pipeline, so it's the 25 attempt to create. So it was not that easy, but most likely I had a successful configure running even earlier, but it doesn't had all the details that I've added in this one. So this is why I went that far with triggering so many pipelines. But let's take a look and see what this pipeline contains. So all these steps are related to the Visual Studio build creation, artifact creation. Now we have the code signing. Let me zoom in. Now we have the action related to the code signing where we extract the certificate. We had the very same steps that we had previously to the installer creation. Remember, the current pipeline will have two parts. We have the installer creation and update configuration file that is used by the updater. Now, the installer creation contains a new command for setting up the version. Remember, we've discussed that the versioning in the installer can be set being in sync with a file from the disk, from the project, from a JSON ini file, or we can set the version of the MSI installer in the pipeline. And in my case, I'm simply using the Git the run number and setting up to the installer. Everything else is we already discussed, synchronizing again the application directory, setting up the signature, referencing the certificate that we have in our pipeline. The next step is a sanitation. Basically, we're removing the certificate. And now, I mentioned that we have the possibility to name dynamically the MSI file. I've added this extra step because if you add versioning in the installer, that will bring a little bit of complexity, which can be easily resolved. So going to the webinar demo project, we've added in the installer naming, we've added versioning. Going to the builds view. Okay, we see that we've added the product version. That means each time when a new pipeline is triggered, we will have a different naming for the installer. So in our pipeline, we had to detect what is the current name of the installer. Okay, maybe I could use directly the GitHub run number, but maybe you could use a different method. It seems that I've also added some logging. That means I had some challenges getting up the naming for the installer. Now, the path that we see right here is the one that it's related to the update configuration file creation. And basically what I'm doing right now, of course, using the secret, enable PowerShell automation, passing the path, which is a different project. Remember, we've created a different project, and let's open it. It's file browser update. File browser update is this project. So this is the project that I've configured again locally. So before going to the pipeline configuration, you configure the installer and also configure the update configuration file so that both can be tested locally before going to the pipeline. Once you go to the pipeline, checking the code, I see the commands that are being executed. So I'm telling to delete the existing update. Then I will use a new update command, which basically corresponds to this operation from the UI. I'm passing the installer path, whatever will be. The name, in this case, it's even the default name, the display name, and the URL where the update can be downloaded. Remember, all these commands that we see right here are available and documented on our website. Now, the next commands are related to the various options that you can specify through the UI. In this case, I'm passing the MSI path. I'm setting the command line for silent installation, basic installation. Okay. I'm using the no cache delete package after installation, which correspond to this option. Okay, after that, I'm setting up description for new features. I don't need to worry about the registry key. They are automatically retrieved when running the command, so I don't need to worry about if the version for my installer will be changing or not. These are automatically grabbed when adding the update. Okay, and the ones related to the release notes are the ones from here. And that seems all the commands that I've added in this step for creating the update configuration file. And the steps related to uploading the artifacts so that I can see when the pipeline, which is number 25, going back to the builds, it will create. Okay, it was the 25 one. Can you spot it? Yeah, that's one. Okay, this will create the artifact. And as mentioned, the artifact that are being created are the ones from the Visual Studio, are the ones from the installer creation. Okay, it seems that I had it already expired, so I had set an expiration date a low number. Okay, the artifacts were created. I could download, test, and get everything up and running. So for creating the update configuration file, there are two options. It's the option to use an existing project that is already configured and just reference in the pipeline, or I can create this project on the fly. Basically, this project does not exist in your repository. It's being created on the fly when the pipeline runs. It means it will create a project, it will add the update, it will build that project with the settings that you specify in the pipeline. And after that, it will create the update configuration file and you can place it on your web server. For that, I have the following workflow, which is the 31. And let's take a look and see what was added. Okay, we see right here. So let's go again to the structure of the pipeline. Again, we have the command line related to the artifacts creation. We have the part related to the code signing, to the certificate. We have the same commands. So as you can see, once I had the successful installer created, I'm not touching anymore. I'm just passing a higher version. I'm synchronizing with the artifacts folder, and I'm not touching it. That's it. That's it. I'm only focusing on the update configuration file creation. Okay, I'm removing the pfx file certificate. Okay, again, getting the name of the installer. What I have right here, I have the update configuration file that are being created using the CLI. So if you take a look on our website, you will see that we have command line support and PowerShell. And here I'm using the PowerShell command line, basically update configuration file. These are the commands available for configuring the update configuration file through the CLI. Okay, and next I'm using the PowerShell com for creating the update configuration file. I have this version through the PowerShell com. Now, how I ended up with these commands, adding them in the workflow file. So I'm not writing them directly here. Instead, I go in locally and create them. Once they are, once I get everything configured as expected, only after that I can go and copy and paste the commands that are running locally in the GitHub action. So I have specified some hard-coded paths, which are actually not that important because they also need to be replaced in your pipeline with the actual paths for the exe installer and so on. But this is the part that is related to the actual PowerShell comp automation. So basically, I'm setting up the advanced installer. I'm creating the advanced installer comp object, create a new project which corresponds to this UI action. It means going to the update and create the project. After that, I'm adding the update entry. Yes, and setting it the update. After that, I'm passing the update download URL command line. URL command line, actually it's QP. And I'm also passing delete package. This is just for deleting update package after being how you can simply set flags in the using the advanced installer comp. After that, I'm setting up the updates, the release notes. I don't need to worry about the update install detection because it's grabbed automatically from the MSI. Then going with the release notes, yeah, so new features are available in this version, UX improvements, all those kind of release notes that you see. Okay, everything is done. I've also added functionality for restarting the application, auto close application. So I specified, okay, the application that needs to be restarted. I need to grab its name. I don't know it. Most likely it has the very same. Yeah, I haven't specified the custom name. Okay. Are there other flags that I've used? Always, yeah, restart always. Basically, this allows us the application to restart itself, to relaunch after the update was configured. Remember the update configuration file and how you configure the updater and so on. It's up to you. Here is just sample, but the updater itself, it's giving you enough flexibility to cover your scenario. And after that, I'm building the project. That's basically once I have this update configuration file created locally, it means I can upload it to the build server, to the web server, and I can test the upgrade. If everything is running as expected, then I will go in the pipeline and simply copy and paste the very same commands that I have right here. I will simply copy and paste in the workflow file, of course, updating and referencing the paths that are corresponding to the installer where it is located, because this is the only parameter that I need to pass the installer. Everything else, the location, the switches are static. And again, I have the upload artifacts operation, which basically upload the installer, upload the binaries and the ini files for the created through the advanced installer command line or through the PowerShell com. And the very last attempt for the workflow file is the one from here. Again, related actions to the Visual Studio and artifacts creation, code signing certificate. Now I have the installer created. I haven't, as you can see, it's been a while since I haven't touched the installer creation. That means once I have it done, I'm not touching it anymore. Again, removing the certificate. Again, that part, this is a complexity that I've intentionally added to have dynamic naming in the installer. If you don't have it, that means you won't have this headache to have the versioning adding in the installer naming. Again, I'm setting up the update configuration file, which is being created through the CLI. These commands, again, before adding them in the GitHub action, I have tested them and run them locally. So I have run each command at a time and tested to won't waste triggering the workflow and keeping it, because if you have a complex pipeline, it means it will take some time until the checkout is being performed, until the project are being built, especially if you have multiple projects that are being referenced and so on. So before going with the pipeline, make sure each command that you are using can be it's running successfully locally. In the pipeline, you will simply reference and update the new paths for the installer and whatever it needs to be changed. Again, the PowerShell automation part. So basically, through this code, which I have previously tested and run it locally, I will go and add it to the pipeline for the very same reason. Make it sure it runs locally. After that, you can go with the pipeline configuration. And again, I have the pipeline artifacts upload. Now I'm uploading all of them. So going back to the build, I can see, I also seen that I've specified I want to make them available for 30 days. Okay, let me small a little bit. Okay, I have them right here. So I have the installer, I have the release, I have the updates, which is being created through the CLI. Let me download it. Okay, let me download the update configuration file that is being created through the PowerShell COM. Okay, extract them here. Now, if I'm checking them, yeah, they should be quite similar, depending the configuration and the flags that I specified. But the most important part is the size is the very same. Okay, here I've added a different description, enhancement. It's also different. But as you can see, everything that needs to be the same, which goes to the product version, to the URL. And as you can see, I have, okay, I was trying. I have everything dynamically referenced and created. Again, maybe I should use, yeah, not bad. So product version was automatically set up to 1.0.40 because this is the 40 time when the pipeline run. The size, it's automatically grabbed, command line, and everything else seems to be dynamically updated. Remember, the installer project, if we open the repository locally, as you can see, the installer that is being currently created, it has version 1.0.40. If going on the local, okay, let me yeah, these are the new files that I've added. But if you take a look, I don't see any other changes to the installer. And if we open the installer, we can see that the version it's 1.0.0. Yeah. And why is that? Because initially, when I've added the project to the repository, I have version 1.0.0. The version is only changing when the pipeline runs, but as you can see, the changes that are being performed during the pipeline are not saved in the installer project. These are only persistent in the installer that is being created, but they are not saved in the AAP file. That means when increasing the version through the pipeline, I don't get the AAP file updated with the version that I'm setting right here. No, this versioning, versioning, it's only reflected in the MSI installer that I've created. Similar with any other command line that are being executed in the pipeline. Advanced Installer has a playground for the GitHub for those that want to take a look. You will find different command lines available. I've also used those as a starting point for my pipeline creation, so you don't have to be a master in configuring the Advanced Installer through the GitHub automation. You can take a look on the existing examples and just simply copy and paste. And as you can see, we have plenty of them. And for those that it's challenging for you, either let us know and we'll guide you on our support email address. And as you can see, there is also dedicated examples how you can set a certificate through the pipeline and so on. That being said, that will be the demo for today. Let's go through the Q&A section. How did you run the sandbox? Okay, so basically the Windows Sandbox is a feature that the Windows 11 comes with. If you don't have it enabled, you need to go to the features list and make sure that you have the Windows Sandbox enabled. Once you have the Windows Sandbox enabled, basically you will have access to a light environment for testing. You don't need any VM. Previously, if you were using Hyper-V, VMware, any virtualization provider, you had to have your image. It's not required anymore to the Windows Sandbox. Remember, the environment is not persistent, but that gives us a big advantage when you need to test and make sure that you are running on a clean environment. Another question from Sandep. So it's asking if GitHub Action is an enterprise feature or if it is also available in the professional edition. Indeed, GitHub Action and all the plugins for the build environment are available starting with the professional edition, although I think there might be some of them, some of the functionality only in the enterprise, but yeah, I see that we have added in the professional one. Is there support for Azure Key Vault for code signing? Yes, so for signing, in my case, I've used PFX file, but you can also use Azure Key Vault or trusted signing, artifact signing, I think it should be named, which basically you can use the digital signature functionalities available starting with the professional edition. That means you have access to it starting with the professional edition. Another question from David that we have, if he defined the use of certificate in AI, why would he use a PFX in GitHub Action? What is the link between that PFX in GitHub Action and certificate store in AI? So in my local project in Advanced Installer, I also have the certificate AI Gallery, the very same certificate that I'll be using in the GitHub Actions, also available in the certificate store. If my certificate was not listed in the certificate store, of course, I had to reference the certificate locally. Yes, I had to input the password for the certificate, and I would have the very same settings that are available through the GitHub. But remember, I shouldn't add the repository, the certificate, the PFX file directly in the repository, because this is how it's currently locally configured. That would mean I would have to add the PFX file in the repository, and that's not something you would like. In the repository, in the GitHub action, I showed you how you can add a certificate, a PFX certificate. So remember, you go to the settings section, and here, you will most likely be here. You need to go to the settings section, which allows you secrets and variable, going to the actions, which basically allows you to add secrets that are available when the pipeline runs. In my case, I had to add the certificate password that I previously provided to the Advanced Installer UI and the signing certificate. And this has to be done because I don't want to have the certificate in the repository. This was just added locally for demo purposes as we run this command to see what it's actually saved in the pipeline. Because through this command, if we go again and run it, we can see our certificate converted to a base 64-bit string. Another question that we have from Chris. Daniel, can you use a certificate stored in a GitHub action, or does it has to be a cloud-based certificate? PFX files are for the most part no longer available for purchase from what I have seen in recent time, probably due to security reason. Chris, that is correct. I've still seen PFX file as being able to purchase. Most of the vendors send you the recommended or the default purchase option as a cloud-based certificate, because through a cloud-based certificate, I've seen they limit the number of signing. If you have the PFX file, you can sign unlimited times and use that certificate unlimited times. They don't have any control on that. So this is why, and of course the security, it's also another concern. But from what I've seen, when using a cloud certificate, you might also get the limited quotas for signing. But either through the let's go back to the digital signature. In advanced installing the digital signature view, you have the possibility to specify trusted signing. You have the possibility to use the Azure Key Vault, or if you are using a custom a vendor that does provide a different authentication, in the signing tool option, you have the possibility to specify a custom tool and provide the very same command that the vendor notified that you can use it for signing. So you are not tied to the PFX files, you are not tied to the Azure Key Vault or artifact signing. You can use basically any vendor for using it in Advanced Installer for signing your installer and your binaries. But going with cloud-based certificate won't be a problem from using that certificate in the Advanced Installer. Any recommendation on the best method for dealing with dongle based code signing in this scenario? So as mentioning during the webinar, if you have the certificate on a USB dongle, actually it's the private key of that certificate that reside on a USB dongle, you won't be able to use that certificate for signing in cloud VMs, because during the signing operation, the signing requires the actual access to the certificate. Since your dongle is here with you, but the VM is running in the cloud, you have no possibility to provide access to the USB dongle. So you can use a USB dongle only if the pipeline is running, it's self-hosted. It can be on your machine directly, it can be on a build server, but it needs to have physical access. So you need to take into consideration this. If you are running your pipeline in a cloud VM, that means you don't have access, you have no possibility to provide access to the USB dongle. So in this case, you should take into consideration a cloud-based certificate, or if there is still the possibility to have direct access to a PFX, the classic certificate, but taking into consideration the special security that you need to have around that certificate. We have another question from Andy. If I'm using Bitbucket pipeline with the Windows self-hosted runner, which part of your workflow are usable and which are GitHub specific? So as long as pipeline is self-hosted, you have access at least to the command line, because you can install Advanced Installer on during when the pipeline runs, and you have, of course, you will have mostly to hard-coded the path to the Advanced Installer command line, but you have full access to the CLI support, which is the one from here. updates, configuration file, editing, the command line. And through the command line, you are able to build the project, you are able to create the updates configuration file, setting up, refreshing the files, resynchronize, and so we try to keep in sync the PowerShell COM and Advanced Installer command line support. So most of the commands will be available as both CLI and PowerShell. For those that still have questions, feel free to send us an email to support@advancedinstaller.com and we will gladly assist. Also, thank you everyone for attending the webinar. Hope it was what you're looking for. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.